Hey, welcome back. On the mill today, look at this chunk of maple. Oh, how awesome is that? That's 16 feet long, about 14 inches, no, sorry, 12 inches top to bottom, 16 inches left to right. The other side is quite a bit bigger, and I'm gonna try to turn this into a 10-inch by 12-inch by 15-foot long beam for the house. It's going to be this piece right here, and I'll go ahead and lay out the joinery on this so you can see what it all looks like when it's all said and done, assuming I actually get a 10 by 12 out of it. I'm really starting to learn that maple is kind of finicky, and getting a 10 by 12 beam in these kind of lengths is pretty tough for many reasons. One, it typically branches pretty early. Now, I'm fortunate enough that most of the trees growing here are quite old and have grown up with a tall canopy. So they shoot up really tall. I've got a couple of examples. Let me show you. So I've got a few examples up here. There's one right behind me here, and there's two over here. Look at these things. Whew, it kind of looks like those trees in the Lorax, right? The Temecula trees or whatever they're called. But I'm going to show you the problem with these things because they're very deceiving. Let's go over there and take a look. Whoa, man, transport stuff is pretty cool. I'm going to put this in wide angle for a second. So I'm underneath of these trees. This one right here is actually a pretty nice, I mean, this is probably the best you could ask for in a maple. It's so good, in fact, that I didn't want to cut it down. It felt a shame to take down such a beautiful, beautiful tree. That right there, the primary branch or the crotch, where the secondary lead, the smaller lead, and the primary lead, which is the bigger one on the right, that right there is probably 20 to 25 feet or so off the ground. So maybe even 30, I guess. I'd have to measure that out. It's huge. That's very uncommon. This over here is probably even a little more than average for what I've had here so far. So that, the primary being on the left and the secondary, smaller one being on the right, is overall a nice log for a maple. That branches out at probably, yeah, so that's 20, so that's got to be about 30 feet up there. It's significantly higher, where this one is just so straight the whole way up and pretty uniform thickness. Actually, it has taper, but very little taper. This one, if you stand back here, you can see there clear as day, right, the crook right there. So it kind of bows in. So really I could only get a log from probably here down, and even this right here starts coming up, tapers out. So more than likely it'd be from like here to just below that would be the most I could get. So on a log that initially looks fabulous, when you get it on the ground or you get it on the mill, it kind of humps out. This is hard to see because of the sun, but it does much the same thing on this side. It kind of comes up this way and then this way and then that way. So really what you thought maybe was a 20-foot log turns out to be a 10-foot log. So that's, well, and I got another example over, boom. That's actually fun. So this guy is also really a rather large and beautiful maple. I could, I think, get a 10 by 12 out of this. I've been holding off to see if I actually need it. I don't want to cut down too much, at least more than I have to for like our yard or for what we need for the house. But if you really look at this and start paying attention to it, it comes up probably 8 feet off the ground, turns ever so slightly this way, and then up here. And that's not even the primary, right? So the primary and secondary is up there, and then this is just a big branch or a leader coming off of it, right? So I could probably get a log from there to there, and that side is somewhat straight. there's a hook here and then a hook here. So I'd have to find the log in between those two. But then over here, if we look at it from this side, kind of hard to see, I guess. This one's pretty straight up to that probably 8-foot mark. And then it does this little whoop right there. And that is pretty significant. That takes off a couple of inches out of my final log diameter. So what I really need to do is get up. What I need is a 15 to 16 foot length. So I need to kind of measure up 15 or 16 feet, probably right around that crotch section, and do a circumferential measurement and see if this would even give me, I would probably, to comfortably get a 10 by 12 out of this, need 18 minimum inch diameter to get what I need out of that. So I'm gonna let him stay there. That guy, I really don't want to touch if I don't have to. Just again, such a beautiful tree. That guy, his neighbor, I want to keep him there for shade in the long term. They kind of block evening sun on the house. But again, I'm going to try to use what I've got. So now we're going to go back over there to the mill and talk about what's going on. Just kidding. I remembered. That's one issue that I'm having with milling up these maple logs. I just lost my earplugs. Milling up these maple logs is they look really straight at first, and then once you get them on the mill on an actually flat surface, they're not so straight. And to remove all that extra stuff ends up removing a lot of material. So I end up, what I hope will be a 10 by 12 ends up being a 10 by 10 or even an 8 by 8 or an 8 by 10. So these log sizes are hard to come by. Very rare and precious indeed. The other thing I'm running into is maple just tends to rot in the center. So what you kind of initially hope is going to be a good log ends up being junk. I had a phenomenal piece. I'm going to show you some of these offcuts. If you can see the curl and the chatoyance in these pieces, this was a 10 by 12 and it was 15 feet long. I could have used it for some of my beamage. I mean, this stuff is amazing. It was so pretty. I was so excited for it. And then I just went to trim up the ends to put on some anchor seal. And the center, if you can see it here, has a little section of rot. And it's not super punky yet, but that's not anything you want for like the main structure of your house, right? So I started trimming it back, right? Little sections, and next thing I knew, I was from a 15-foot long piece down to a 7-foot long piece, and I just threw it on the fire pit because I was just frustrated and mad. But now that I've thought about it, I went over and did some measurements. My braces are going to be 3 by 5. This is actually 5 inches here and 10 inches wide. So I could get 3 braces out of that 7-foot piece, all with this beautiful curl and figure, and they could be braces for the house. And then this actually down here would be able to produce another brace. The measurements are all the same on the big piece over there. So I'm gonna go pull that off the burn pit, use what I can. I wish I hadn't cut as much off as I did because I could have gotten more braces out of it. But what are you gonna do? You carry on. Keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it. Life's a garden, dig it. All that other Joe Dirt stuff. You just gotta learn your lessons, right? So back to this guy. This is a beautiful, beautiful specimen. I'm gonna turn you around again so you can see what I got going on here. So overall, this is a pretty straight log. There is a bit of a hook that way, a banana, if you will, but not really bad. Hopefully I can salvage a 10 by 12 out of this. What I've done so far is I marked center on this side and I marked center on that side. I have a stick that crosses over the bunks. This guy here, I put him down, or sorry, it goes across the rails. So I put it down here, right? Gives me a place to reference off of. I find the middle, I mark the middle. This is my big side. right? So this was 10.5 inches off of my board. I come over here, I put it on that side, I measure up, and that was a couple inches lower. So I take a bottle jack and I lift up this side until that line is even with that line down there, and then that accounts for the taper in the log. So that side was 16 inches and this side was 13 inches. So 1.5 inches, right, taper on either side, so a 3-inch loss in diameter along the length of 15 feet. So what this does now is sort of centers this whole thing, and now when I make my cut across here, when I flip it over, I'm not going to lose nearly as much on this end, and this is my restrictive end. So we're going to go ahead and cut this, flip it, make another cut. What I want is to end up with like 11 inches or 12 inches on this side to start off with, and then square it up into a square cant, and then I can make some decisions to get my 10 by 12 with the least amount of wane and waste possible. Also, if you didn't know, you produce a lot of waste doing sawmill business stuff. I've got bark everywhere. I've got little offcuts over here. I've got piles and piles of firewood over there. I've got to go cut all my stuff on my bucking station over there into chunks and put it all into a pile. So what I did was I went and procured a barrel from my father-in-law, and I've turned it into a burn barrel. So now I can start getting all this bark and everything burnt, offcuts and things. Also, it could help me stay warm in those cold winter months or cold fall months that are soon to be upon us. So enough yabbing and gabbing and talking. Let's get to work. Hope you enjoy what you're seeing. I'm gonna get some coffee. I don't know why I always say that. You know what? Just enjoy the darn video, will ya? Cheers. I apologize. Cut 4 happened and the camera was not working. So I have 4 sides removed now. This is squared up but very rough timber. And I kind of just max dimension this thing, and then I can really take a look at it and figure out where I need to pull off the material. So let me go get my measuring tape. What I've got is in this dimension, I've got 12 inches, and in this dimension, I've got 13. So the plan is, this is gonna be my 12-inch dimension, and I'm gonna take a majority of that inch off on this side so that I can help preserve this. And really, well, I'll explain later with the joinery. And this side, I'm gonna take at least an inch off on this side. I'll take an inch off on this side. I think what I'll do is I'll roll it once. I'll take my inch off of this side. I'll see where I'm at, because really I need to take off much more on this side to get rid of what's going on in the center here. So let me show you. There's a spot there where the saw really didn't even hit. So if I can bring this in an inch, it'll probably be out in here. And then if I can take, you know, a ½ inch off of this, this will actually disappear. It's pretty surprising how quickly this goes away. So right now, this looks like it's in really rough shape, and that I might not get my 10 by 12, but I think I will. So we're gonna go ahead and get at it. I'm gonna roll this once. I'm gonna take some off of that side, and then we'll flip it again and we'll take some off of this side. At this point going forward, until I have my final timber, I'm gonna be checking for square and using my bottle jack to adjust this thing as necessary. Well, we made it. It's a 10 by 12. It's this one took a while just because I was trying to really figure out where I wanted to orient everything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay out some very rough sketches of what the joinery will look like on this particular piece, where everything will land, and then you can kind of see why I made the decisions that I made maybe in milling this piece. It's not super ideal, but like I said earlier in the video, ideally this would just be, you know, square. There'd be no wane. It would look much different. Given the material that I have, I'm having to make certain compromises, and that's okay. It's gonna look beautiful either way. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and lay out this joinery. You can watch. What we're gonna have here on this side is where this beam is going to connect into a post that goes up a little bit higher. So 12 foot, this will be about 8 foot on the ground. So in this side, there's going to be what is called a through wedged half dovetail mortise and tenon joint. And then on this side, what there's going to be is an under squinted stop splayed wedged scarf joint, and I'll explain what that is once I have it laid out. And then here, God, it's so hard to point this stuff. Somewhere over here, yeah, there we go. Right in this area, there's going to be a mortise and tenon pocket for where the other post that's only 8 foot tall is going to connect into there to carry the beam. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, have you follow along, and then we'll get this thing stacked up, put away. Well, here we are again. I'm about 20 minutes into this video, and there's at least another 20 minutes of coverage that I really couldn't cut out, so I'm gonna cut it here. This video footage was actually taken back in the end of September. It's now the end of October. This sunrise happening back here. All the leaves are falling. It's been rainy and wet. We went on a camping trip for like a trick-or-treat type thing, and I haven't been able to get anything done. It's been raining nonstop. I haven't been able to get anything done on the mill for about two and a half weeks, and it's been incredibly frustrating. Not to mention, we all got sick the beginning of this week, so this is day 5 for me. Don't worry, it's just a cold. None of the no-named virus that we all don't want to talk about. Just a cold, just a common, not common cold that we don't have any immunities to. Anywho, I'm not going to rant on that. What I will say is this video ends with a 10 by 12 timber. The next video will go into laying out, very rough layout of the joinery, and I'll have some more discussions and thoughts at the beginning of that video. So if you stuck around until the end here, let me know if you found anything useful in that video for future self. Refer to this if you think there was worth your time to spend all the energy to lay everything out this way and to make sure it was really square. I'd like to reflect on this once I actually go to do all the joinery in a year to see if spending the extra time to make sure that these cants and these timbers are perfectly square and flat off of the mill. I think now it will be worth the effort, but we'll see down the road. Anywho, we'll see you in the next video. You'll have a good night. Bye-bye now.